Well, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to your favorite little soccer podcast. It is Stateside Footy. I am, of course, your host, Steve Silver, and I just want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your Wednesday evening, or if you're on the West Coast, Wednesday afternoon, for a little soccer talk, U.S. men's national team style. And, of course, coming up, we have the Nations League semifinal against Panama, a team that has a little bit of a recent history against us. And tonight we're predicting Mauricio Pochettino's 23-man CONCACAF Nations League roster. But before we get into it, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons. And also, if you want to be a part of tonight's show, man, just go ahead and hit the chats, man. It's all good, man. I got your back. All right. So, for like I just mentioned, for the Nations League, of course, it's a CONCACAF sanctioned FIFA CONCACAF sanctioned event. This is not a friendly where you have ample and oodles of rosters, oodles and just crazy ass roster space. It is a 23-man roster for this upcoming window, and so there's a lot of discussion on who is going to be taking those positions. There's a few guys that pretty much write themselves into the roster, but there's some other guys as well too that should be integrated into this roster. And we're going to get started right away. And again, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to be a part of tonight's conversation, go ahead and hit me up in the chat room. I'd love to have you on. Man, we're just going to have fun tonight. All right, so let's go ahead and start with goalkeepers. I have three goalkeepers for this window. And of course, it starts with Matt Turner, who is Mauricio Pochettino's number one. As much as I don't like it, and as much as you probably don't like it, considering the fact that Matt Turner just does not have enough playing time being out there in Crystal Palace. Yes, he did feature against Millwall in the FA Cup. Okay, that's great. That's his fourth appearance. But for the most part, he has been persona non grata at Crystal Palace. But with the U.S. men's national team, he is Pochettino's number one, so I have him there. And number two, I have Patrick Schulte. And it makes sense, right? Patrick Schulte probably is that next potential number one. He has essentially been, Pochettino's number two since jumping in as head coach. He's the best young American goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. I guess to some that's debatable, but to me, I think he pretty much is. And of course, he was the starting. He was the starting keeper in the Olympic tournament this last summer. I think it just makes a tremendous amount of sense that Patrick Schulte would be part of this group. And my number three goalkeeper on this list is Diego Cochin. And I think, as I mentioned right at the top, there has to be a certain amount of integration into this roster, especially with some of these young players. If Diego Cochin is looked at as that next guy, potentially even being for, the 2030 cycle, it's imperative that Mauricio Pochettino brings in Diego Cochin, lets them continue getting a taste of the first team, how things work, get acclimated with his goalkeeper coach, and just being a part of the group and being a part of this first team. Diego Cochin probably should be that number three. Turning my attention to fullbacks, I only have three, and for me, it makes sense when you look at the last couple windows of how Mauricio Pochettino operated. He's generally carried two. Sometimes he's carried three. And in this case, I have three as well, too, because of these numbers and because of the flexibility of certain other guys on the roster. You don't necessarily need to carry two at each position. And, of course, it starts with Anthony Robinson, probably the best left back in the Premier League. I think he's kind of, evolved into that throughout the course of the season. One, maybe two. Anthony, he's obviously getting looks at different teams around, the Premier League. It's well earned. The second guy is Joe Scally, and it makes a lot of sense because as of right now, Serginho Dest is back and he's training with PSV, but he's not going to be available. He's not on the preliminary roster, so he cannot be called up for this one. That's probably going to be a summertime type of call-up, maybe Gold Cup, but we'll see. As of right now, Joe Scally is that right back for me. And my third one is John Tolkien, but with a caveat, because as of right now, John Tolkien is still dealing with a thigh injury with Holstein Kiel. There is Word hasn't came down whether or not he's going to be available for this window. He is on the preliminary roster, and quite frankly, he actually deserves the call up. Since he's made his way over to the Bundesliga, he's actually played incredibly well. I think John Tolkien has earned it, but if he's not available, then it's probably going to be Marlon Fossey. Of all the fullbacks on the 60-man preliminary roster, outside of Joe Scally and Anthony Robinson, there's not a lot of flexibility there. And the reason why I want to carry 3, and I'm only carrying 3, is the fact that you have guys like Weston McKennie and you have Timmy Weah, who have gotten a lot of time this season at the fullback positions. So there's a tremendous amount of flexibility to the point where you don't need to carry 4 with just how things line up. Turning to the center backs, and again, like goalkeepers, there's a lot of question marks surrounding the center back pairings. And I start with the 2 that I think should be the starting center backs in this group, which is Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie. The evolution of Chris Richards has been super nice to watch at Crystal Palace, and I think he's made strides to the point where he almost kind of writes himself into this one. And Mark McKenzie, I think the dude's got talent. I don't know how you guys feel about Mark McKenzie. I certainly think that he's gotten better. The third name on this list is Nokai Banks, and I like Nokai Banks, man. I think he's had a pretty good showing with FC Augsburg, and I think, again, when we talk about some of this youth integration, if he's going to be somebody that is for the next cycle, the 2030 cycle, potentially even getting a roster spot at 2026, we'll see about that. Again, just like Diego Cochin, you want to bring him in. You want him to get comfortable in the center back groupings, and I think that Nokai Banks makes perfect sense for that. Of the guys that are available. Cameron Carter-Vickers, Austin Trusty, Tim Ream. I don't have Tim Ream on my list, by the way. Frankly, because number one, it's weird because he keeps getting called. He keeps getting called up. He's the captain. I understand that. But with FC, with Charlotte FC, he's not even playing center back right now. He's playing left back. And he's not really doing that great of a job. I think there are better options for that, that leadership. And that's why I went with Walker Zimmerman. Because number one, he's actually playing center back right now, but also he's a left-footed center back. And I think he's the best center back in this pool when it comes to aerial duels on set pieces. That should come in handy. But that being said, the 4th center back is probably not going to see the pitch at all in this window. So it's not going to hurt you bringing a guy like Walker Zimmerman. Turning our attention to the midfield now, and this is kind of where I went heavy. And we'll start off with center defensive mid, and I got 3. I'm carrying 3 CDMs in this one. Tyler Adams obviously writes his name in. He's healthy. And yeah, granted, I think he just played 120 minutes for Bournemouth. And, every single time I hear that, I kind of get nervous. But right now, Tyler Adams is absolutely at his fittest right now. There's no issues with the hamstrings. Tyler Adams right now is healthy. He writes himself into this one. The second one is Johnny Cardoso. And again, we talk about the evolution of Johnny Cardoso. Obviously, if you were living under a rock, you saw that header against Real Madrid, and that was probably the best performance a U.S. men's national team player had against a team of that type of caliber. And Johnny Cardoso is playing unbelievably good football right now, and I think he walks into this team as well too. And the third one is Tanner Tessman, who is Mauricio Pochettino loves Tanner Tessman, and there's also numerous reasons why I picked Tanner Tessman on top of the fact that he's Pochettino's guy. It's the fact that the versatility he kind of brings, because if you need an 8 late in the game, somebody that's a little bit more physical, you can bring him into that role, and he's going to be able to handle himself quite well. At center mid, this is actually kind of interesting because I have Weston McKennie, and of course that kind of goes without saying. But the second one on my list is the one that I like, and I think he's earned it, and that's Paxton Aronson. He's the only Aronson brother I have on this roster. And when you look at the things that Paxton has done this year, it's unbelievable. There's a reason why FC Utrecht is sitting in third place in the Eredivisie. He has 6 goals, 2 assists, and 21 starts. He's he's coming up on 2,000 minutes played. And for the most part, he's just been solid. You look at his matches dating back to January 12th, and dude, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Paxton has done enough and then some to get called into this one. And of course, the last name on this one would be Yunus Musa, and I like Yunus Musa because of the flexibility he gives. If you need Yunus to play in a fullback position, he could do that. If you need him on the wings, he can do that. I think his best position is probably in the middle of the park, but Yunus Musa is there. Turning my attention to the 10, and it's Gio Reyna. Now, whether or not you believe Gio Reyna has, deserved the call up, we can have that conversation. And, you might be right. But there's no doubt, that Gio's got talent. And, this would be the first opportunity for Mauricio Pochettino to bring him into camp. Because if you remember, he's, the windows prior, he was never available because of injury. He's coming off of two starts in the Bundesliga, so he's getting time and he's getting minutes. These last couple starts really haven't been fruitful, but that being said, this is an opportunity for Gio Reyna to come into camp and basically run with the first team, and it's been a while. The next guy on the list at the 10 position is Diego Luna, and I think this is an opportune time to bring in a guy like Diego coming off his January camp. And the biggest reason why I think he could get called in is what happened at that January camp. You heard everything that Pochettino was saying about him after, his breaking his nose and then, demanding that he stay. I mean, that type of toughness is the thing. That aspect is something that Mauricio Pochettino absolutely loves. And the fact that he's still developing, but even playing in Major League Soccer, you can see how special Diego Luna is on the ball. And in this situation where you have different opportunity, you have different numbers that can play it there. Like for instance, if he decides, Pochettino decides to play a double pivot with Johnny and Tyler, they can put McKennie up at the 10. So there's different ways that you can juggle this out. Where if you want to give Gio 60. You can figure that out. But, Diego Luna certainly, I personally believe that he's earned an opportunity to be a part of this camp. And I actually think Diego will be a part of this camp. Turning to my wingers, obviously Christian Pulisic, Captain America, kind of goes without saying. That dude just walks straight into the team. Tim Way on the right side. Again, a lot of flexibility with Timmy. I personally think that he's going to be playing out the wings. But that being said, we've seen him play right back for a number of games for Juve. So you got to love that flexibility. And the third winger that I have on this one is Alex Dejas. I like Alex, right? The thing about Zendejas is the fact that every single time that I look down at the box score, it always seems like he's scoring a goal or getting an assist. The dude is absolutely ripping it up for Club America. And I think in the context of the U.S. men's national team, I think everybody shares the same opinion with him, that maybe, long term, he probably doesn't have the future. But for the right now, when you look at the winger depth right now, it's not good. I mean, the guys behind him are, Camp Cupcake guys. And it is what it is, right? Griffin Yao probably hasn't done enough to get called in yet. But, for the sake of this one, considering that you do have Yunus Musa, who is, who has played out on the wings for Pochettino, you're going to have some cover there. You're going to have some cover there at winger. So it's not going to be the end of the world. And my strikers, It's pretty self-explanatory right now. Josh Sargent is going to be the starter. And rightfully so, because Josh Sargent has been absolutely on fire right now for Norwich City. Coming back off the injury, he hit the ground running. And I think it's now like he scored 6 goals in 7 games. Like, the dude's been unreal. And he's coming into this camp at the perfect time. The biggest problem with Josh is the fact that he hasn't been able to, translate that league form into the National League. And while there is some built-in excuse with Josh, because when you look at some of those prior windows, we didn't necessarily have our first team on the field with him, right? So you look at some of the pieces that Josh was playing with in the previous camps, wasn't necessarily our best. So now there's no excuses. He's going to come in. He's going to have our first team 10. He's going to have both wingers, to the side of him. Like, we're going to essentially be playing with what should look like the World Cup roster. Give or take a few names, but this is pretty much what we might see come World Cup 2026. So there's no excuse for Josh. I would like to see Josh hit the ground running in this upcoming window to put all the doubters to bed. And the last name on this list, I'm going to go with Damian Downs. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could make a case for Cole Campbell. I like Cole Campbell, and when you talk about some of this young integration, it would be kind of nice to see him. Patrick Aubameyang, who had a very good January camp for the U.S. men's national team. I don't think that Patrick Aubameyang did enough. Granted, he did score twice. It is what it is. But that being said, there's going to be a lot of time down the road for Patrick Aubameyang to get integrated into this team. But outside of that, Brandon Vasquez, Brian White. I like Brian, but I don't think he cracks it. Like, to me, that is Gold Cup level guys. I think Damian Downs, when you look at some of the things that he has done over with FC Cologne, he's been absolutely lights out, man. He's got what? He's started 17 games of 23, 9 goals, 2 assists, played nearly 1,500 minutes. And I think, when you look at his that 3-game stretch from February 1st to February 9th, when he against Eintracht Braunschweig, Bayer Leverkusen, and Schalke, I mean, he scored in 3 straight. Since then, it's he's had two starts in those 3 since, but he's putting up numbers, and I think this is an opportune time for Mauricio Pochettino. And especially when you consider he took down the German national posts from social media. This seems like this is going to be an opportune time for Damian Downs to get a U.S. men's national team call up, and I like it considering no Balogun, no Ricardo Pepi. This is a good opportunity to get him into camp and potentially hit the ground running. Where it would be nice to see him get a nice little 5-minute peak there at the end of the game. But for the most part, I think this is what the roster is going to look like. Let me know how you feel. Before we head up on in here again, let's go ahead and recap. At goalkeeper, I have Matt Turner, Patrick Schulte, and Diego Cochin. At the fullbacks, I have Anthony Robinson, Joe Scally, and either of John Tolkien or Marlon Fossey, depending on John Tolkien's injury situation. At the center backs, it's Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, Nokai Banks, and Walker Zimmerman. At the center defensive mid, it's Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, and Tanner Tessman. At the center mid position, Weston McKennie, Paxton Aronson, and Yunus Musa. At the attacking mid, it's Gio Reyna and Diego Luna. At the wingers, it's Christian Pulisic, Timmy Weah, and Alex Zendejas. And at striker, it's Josh Sargent and Damian Downs. Let me know how you think about that. Let me know who you feel should be a part of this Nations League roster. And if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comment section. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you tomorrow. here on Stateside Footy as Adam Turner joins us, and we talk about whether or not the U.S. men's national team is a dark horse for the 2026 World Cup. You guys have a great night.